by our senior correspondent, Catherine Norris-Trent. Good to have you with us this morning, Catherine. Firstly, talk us through the chances that the Taliban might actually decide to roll back on these latest moves against women's rights in Afghanistan.
Well, there has been a lot of outcry after these latest bans. The UN Security Council unanimously condemning the move to ban female workers from working with aid agencies and NGOs, both domestic and international, as you say, saying that could have serious consequences, life-threatening consequences, as we head into another hard winter for Afghanistan. Obviously, temperatures get very cold. And last year, it was only aid payments, really, that kept a lot of people from freezing or starving to death. So they say they're deeply alarmed over that, and a lot of people will share those alarms. In some areas, women were the only people delivering aid to the women of those communities, women and children. So a lot of people, especially in remote areas, may be cut off from any kind of aid services. And, already before the Taliban takeover in August 2021, humanitarian spending made up 80% of Afghanistan's budget, and the economy has got far worse since then. Now, will there be a backtrack? The UN has said it's had contact from the Taliban Health Ministry, which says that it kind of accepts that health-related work should continue and that women could report to work and discharge their services. But, it remains to be seen how that plays out on the ground, and many aid agencies, in fact most large aid agencies have suspended their work until it's cleared up. Are there signals that perhaps emergency aid and disaster management could perhaps continue? But everything's basically emergency aid at the moment, because a lot of this is basically life-saving, starvation-preventing work. So it really depends how it plays out on the ground. For now, it's paused. The situation is very fragmented in Afghanistan. So even if there is an edict from one ministry, there's no saying that in a far-flung province of Afghanistan, fighters on the ground won't block female aid workers from going to work and things like that. So it's a very complex situation, far from uniform. The official line from the Taliban has been very defiant, saying that they won't be threatened by international aid agencies or Western governments into changing their policies. We're using the threat of not having international aid, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out in the months and weeks to come.
So that's their official line. But what about these reports of rifts within the Taliban leadership itself? Will that make any difference to how this all plays out?
It could make a significant difference. Right from the outset, there have been reports of deep divisions between two major factions in the Taliban leadership. The hardline wing, which the hard line being taken by the Taliban's reclusive supreme leader Habibatullah Akhundzada, and what is seen as a more pragmatic wing, some of those in the political wing of the Taliban, including Mullah Baradar, who led peace negotiations with the US in Doha. There are differences of line there. So this ban, it's believed that several leading ministers in the Taliban de facto government do not agree with these bans, are very worried about it. After the school ban for high school girls in Afghanistan, several ministers reportedly travelled to see the supreme leader and to talk with him, to trying to get him to change his mind, and that hasn't worked so far. So we'll have to wait and see whether these rifts, whether this faction, whether the rifts will deepen, whether the faction that's perhaps more pragmatic and more open to restoring women's rights to go to university, to have education, to work in NGOs, whether they will prevail, or whether there's going to be some kind of split which will lead to actual fighting between the various elements of the Taliban, which again could be very worrying for people most in need in Afghanistan.
OK, we'll leave it there, Catherine. Thanks so much for coming in to us this morning. That's our senior correspondent here at France 24, Catherine Norris-Trent. Well, in other world news,